So good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's meeting of Community and Place Committee. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get started. I would like to advise everyone present that if you hear a long, continuous siren, this is the fire alarm. Please don't pack up your belongings, and you should leave the building through the nearest and safest exit. By the back of the office through the police stairwell. If this route is blocked, you should exit the building through the main marble staircase. When exiting the building, proceed up the ramp and turn right. All attendees should congregate at the rear of the top car park, where a register will be taken. Wait until you are told it's safe to re-enter the building. And if you are a councillor, we have added you to the register. And if you are a visitor and have not signed the register, please do so now. Additionally, while the fire alarm is sounding, do not use the lift to exit the building. Can I please remind everyone to please put your mobile phones on silent mode and put the phone away for the duration of the meeting, and therefore avoiding interference from your iPads with the microphones. The meeting will be recorded and live streamed on YouTube, and therefore when speaking, please remember to speak clearly. As the chair of the meeting, I have the discretion to terminate or suspend recording and live streaming if, in my opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceedings of this meeting. Recording and live streaming of confidential items will also not take place. To alert me as the chair of the meeting that you would like to speak, please raise your hand and wait for me to call upon you before speaking. Please remember, if you leave the meeting for any reason, you will not be able to take part in the vote on the item that is being discussed at that time. Members of the public will be able to view the live stream on the meeting via YouTube. And please can I request that when speaking, you make your points as succinct as possible to allow for the smooth running of the meeting. And can I also take this opportunity to remind you to be polite and treat each other with respect at all times. Thank you. And moving on to just before we start the official business, I'd like to welcome Sharon and Daryl. I haven't got to from Avon and Somerset Police. We really appreciate you taking the time to come in and to see us this evening, and if you'd like to give us a bit of an introduction, please, that'd be really great.
Thank you for the invite. So I'm Sharon Baker. I'm one of the PCSA supervisors for the Taunton Neighbourhood Policing team.
And I'm Darryl Screech. I'm an acting sergeant for
and obviously if anybody's got any, has anybody got any questions at this stage that any of the fellow members that they would like to ask? Because I think it's going to be a regular thing coming to this committee. So obviously what we can do in advance of that is actually prepare any questions and let the PCS have them, then they can collate any replies and responses and then bring them back to the meeting, if that's okay with you. Thank you very much, and thank you once again for coming. So moving on to, we've got no public speakers, I don't think, have we? Nope. So moving on to the official business of the evening, do we have any apologies, Ollie?
Thank you, Chair. We've got apologies from Councillor Sue Lees, who's being substituted by Councillor Furman.
Welcome to Councillor Furman. Welcome to our committee meeting. Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest of the agenda items that are going to follow? The minutes of the last meeting. So we've got the minutes of the last two meetings that we had. So we've got the minutes of the Tuesday, the 24th of September, and the extraordinary meeting that we had on the 4th of November. Hope you had time to read them through. Any questions? So can I have a proposer, please, to approve and sign? And a seconder? To approve and sign as a correct record the minutes are correct. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Garside. All those in favour of? Carried. Thank you. So, moving on to item 4. So we've got the forward plan that we're being asked to note the forward plan for the Community and Place Committee. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, it's we've got a verbal update on the plan for Community in Place. Verbal update, but it doesn't appear in the next agenda of the next meeting. So I'm presuming there's something coming to us that's quite detailed.
Yes.
At some point, not this time, correct?
Yeah, we'll include it in the January forward plan.
And will that mop up a lot of sort of things that are like on to-do lists and in strategies, and will it kind of have a overview of all of those things and then say how it's all going to be? Is that the idea behind the plan?
Yes. I will be giving a bit of an update on the Community in Place plan today, just to answer those questions.
Other question, follow. Will there be a chance to have a look at a written draft thing to say, hang on, where's this gone? Before you bring it to the next committee?
On the forward plan. So we've noted we've noted the forward plan. So moving on to update from myself. I'm just going to give a brief overview of just a few things that's happened between the last extraordinary meeting and this one today. Obviously, we've had the remembrance commemorations, the remembrance parade, all of which were well organised. And again, you know, thanks to Jo and her team and to Craig and everybody who made all of those wonderful things happen. And it was great to see members of the public, both young and old, on that day. And also, I think, you know, organisations that gifted their time also, such as St John's Ambulance, they gifted their time to come along, provide that support. So it's good to thank them for that. We've got carols around a bandstand coming up. Again, preparations are well underway. For the public, thank you. We've got, again, different people, different organisers and events, people giving their time, services for that. Apparently we have now taken over and taken back the ownership of the fairy lights, apparently, haven't we now, that had gone missing around the bandstand. The Somerset Council were hanging on to them firmly, but apparently we've now got them back. And they are going to be installed by our own ops and assets team. So that's a good step forward. Jordan, our new climate and place.
Yes, climate and place.
That's it. I put it down in initials and I thought, I'm sure that's climate and place. She's been just busy settling into her new role, doing lots of different things, including looking at sustainable office supplies for here, which is a good thing. And I think she's also met with Karuna at Climate Action Taunton as well. So she's got those discussions already going on. And we've interviewed and recruited a new community service assistant last Friday. So we're going to have another member of the team, which can only be a good thing. And lastly, it was just sad to see that Winterfest was cancelled because of the bad weather. I think, you know, we can all agree that it was necessary for health and safety. But I think it's also worth noting that actually it wasn't a decision taken lightly. There was a meeting held on a Saturday, wasn't there, Craig, with everybody, with the police and everybody concerned, to share their voices and to share their concerns and making that decision. So I think it's important to recognise the work that goes into that, and it's not just a straightforward, oh, it's postponed because of the bad weather. It would have just been too much work involved to actually postpone it and reschedule it to another day. With that, unless anybody's got any questions of me, I'll move on to the next agenda item, which is updates from chairs of working groups. So, the pop-up shop task and finish group hasn't met, so that the civic task and finish group, we've had no meeting since the 1st of October. We've also got something on the agenda. Councillor Ellis, anything from the Climate and Ecological Emergency Action Plan Working Group?
No, we need to meet, but waiting till Jordan, me and Jordan can sit down properly. I can do an arts and culture. We have an arts and culture meeting. Thursday before last? Recently.
Last Thursday. It was fairly recent.
It was fairly recent.
Yes.
These things are always very well attended.
Distant memory, yeah.
Yeah. These things are always very well attended. It's like literally all of the key people from across Taunton engaged in arts and culture. We were talking about the Arts Council visit to Taunton and key messages for that. And it was brilliant. We had a young person who has been doing a sort of an internship / apprenticeship with Somerset Youth Theatre in attendance, who has achieved amazing things. And it just really kind of struck us that they were saying very strongly, you know, that they want more opportunities in Taunton. They don't want to have to go away to Taunton to practice in the arts and culture, and you know, they want actually more opportunities to do so here. So that's, I think, quite powerful. So yeah, that's us.
Fabulous, thank you. And anything from the twinning working group, Councillor Strauss, or Councillor Strauss, or Councillor?
No, it still hasn't yet.
Okay.
We're still waiting for an official start. I can't remember how many members have signed up so far. Can I bring in Holly? I think we do have a meeting in for the beginning of December. It's still yet to meet, but we have got a date set.
Yeah. That's great. So we'll be able to update us all at the next meeting. That's brilliant. Thank you. So moving on to item 7 is our street marshal update, and I'm delighted to welcome Beth.
Hello.
Hiya, Beth.
Hiya.
And just to give us an update about the street marshal service. Over to you, Beth.
Yeah, so I have here with me Stephen, and he'll be showing the stats. If we can just share the screen for a moment, in regards to what Nick has been doing over the last month. It's the month, yeah. So yeah, we'd like to show you all what's been going on, really.
Can everyone see the PowerPoint?
We can see your notes and the presenter slides as opposed to the main slides, but
Thank you, Craig. I will try and sort. Is that any better?
Yeah.
Perfect. So as Beth said, I will go through the stats of what Nick, the street marshal, has been reporting about what's happening in Taunton for October 2024. I've also got a summary of what's been happening for the previous 3 months, just to give you an idea of how October 2024 starts adding to the trend. So there was 167 incidents reported just by Nick of October 2024. 124 of them appeared in the retail area, 40 of them appeared in public realm, and 11 hospitality. With theft or shoplifting, ASB, aggressive behaviour and rough sleeping as those top 4 incidents. When I'm talking about retail, I'm talking about our retail outlets, daytime economy, offices, cafes. When I'm talking about hospitality, it's more about pubs and clubs and your nighttime economy. Then your public realm is outside on the street, phone boxes, graffiti, that type of thing. Adding to the data from August, that means we have reported 434 incidents onto our platform. The vast majority sitting in the retail area, being shoplifting. Rough sleeping and ASB are still in the top 4 incidents. So Nick sees a lot of the rough sleepers. We'll try and speak to them, report that they are there. He won't report them every single day they're there, but once every couple of weeks, if they're still around, he'll re-report them onto our platform to create a profile of someone that's been in the town for a while. And then ASB or antisocial behaviour, anything that he comes across on the street or anything that a retailer or someone he speaks to has told him about that's happened previously when he's not there. Seen as shoplifting is our top incident type. In October, almost £7,000 worth of goods were stolen, and between August and October, there was £19,000, which includes a £5,000 mobile phone theft. So you're probably asking, where are all these incidents happening in the town? So in October, these are the locations the incidents were happening. There are hotspots around Morrison's, and then towards the south around Market Square and the Sainsbury's there. And you can see the incidents on the right hand side, what those heat maps are made up of. If I run the same exercise from August to October, the heat maps slightly changed. So in the summer, we saw a lot of incidents centre around the Castle Green, as opposed just to the retail areas. There was also Tesco on the A3029, on that right hand side of that map, reporting quite a lot to Nick in September. Hence a big red spot over there. And what I've done is just to show you a little bit of the data analysis for the top offences we have. In October, theft was reported at its peak on a Tuesday, at its lowest on a Friday, which seems unusual, Friday being the lowest reporting day, but we find across our estate, Friday is actually the time no one goes to steal. Instead, they behave themselves because they want to go out to the nighttime economy, and we find a lot of nighttime economy offences heighten on a Friday and Saturday instead. So that trend isn't uncommon. When we look at that hours per day, 11 o'clock is the peak, and it's about the same sort of amount of incidents between 10 until 5. Speaking to Craig previously, that sounds about right for the life of Taunton. And that is where your shoplifting is happening in October. Running the same exercise on antisocial behaviour. Fridays are the lowest days we see antisocial behaviour in Taunton, but it's a fairly consistent happening on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay. But in terms of hours of the day, this is past school time. 3 o'clock onwards seems to be the peaks. Speaking to Nick, seeing his reports, a lot of the antisocial behaviour around the town is by kids, by groups of children, or quite often the same group of 14 to 18-year-olds causing just havoc in the town. And this is where his ASB incidents have happened, or he stumbled across them. And then I've got aggressive and threatening behaviour. Aggressive behaviour, blue, threatening behaviour, green. This is any sort of verbal abuse received by shop staff, any threatening behaviour towards Nick, the street marshal, or to other members of public. This is what those two categories mean. And it's generally received at any point during the day. There's no strict timescale of when it's happening. Often these types of offences are coupled with begging, theft, criminal damage, or just general antisocial behaviour. And this is where the aggressive behaviour and threatening behaviour is happening. In the similar spots, the ASB is happening, but it is also centred around retail areas, so linking into that shop theft incident type. For rough sleeping, these are the locations rough sleeping has been found. So up by the Taunton pool, there's a little tent encampment up there, but also just east of the Orchid Shopping Centre, there's quite a large encampment over there. September, similar locations of where rough sleeping is happening. And August, there was a higher concentration happening above near Taunton Pool. Because shoplifting was the top reported incident, I've just run a little report in October what types of goods were being stolen. Cosmetics comes in at the highest. I don't know if you can read what they say, the categories, but it's £2,110 stolen in October of cosmetics. Toys is that top one, 1,318, and then clothing at 1,100. And then I just have a summary of the top people causing issues. I've had to take out all the names. But what we're seeing is a lot of the incidents are caused by the same people or groups of people. Our top reported person in October was a rough sleeper. There was also a shoplifter for alcohol and vapes, and he was aggressive every time he was approached. The second one down, antisocial behaviour. So after the 3 o'clock times, often used by older groups as a distraction for theft. So that person was reported abusing shop staff, throwing clothing on the floor while others committed theft. Number 3 and 4, they haven't been around for a while. From what I understand, the police did deal with them, but more recently they've come back into the town. They are theft of food and just some antisocial behaviour. And then finally, aggressive individual when they're refused nicotine sales. So that tells me they are under 18. So that person is abusing a lot of shop staff. And that is what I have for what's been reported in October, if there are any questions.
That's very nice.
Presumably from all this data, there's then a discussion with the local police. So this is what we're finding. I mean, I'm assuming incidents go through to them anyway, but is there like a sort of then a strategic discussion? So first one homeless person caused like 12 sort of incidents. It's kind of like what they're doing it again and again and again. So how come? I don't understand how they're kind of still doing it. I'm just trying to understand the links between the stuff that's going on and then the intelligence, presumably, which reflects police stats as well. And there's probably some reaction to that. I mean, worrying about the rough sleepers, the situation just never seems to improve. It's just kind of shunting around. which worries me as well. So that would mean we need to be having kind of strategic discussions, I think, with the rough sleeper team at Somerset Council to understand, you know, because you're always told, or they're always offered, you know, always offered a bit, da, 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 da. And I'm like, well, why aren't they taking that up? Is it because to their minds it's unsuitable? They just don't want to? What is the issue? So it's that strategic. It's brilliant having this data and understanding what's going on, but it's like then strategically, what do we do? And the other issue would be if it's the same group of 14 to 18-year-olds or whatever, probably it's possible to identify what school they come from, and then strategic action with the school. So that kind of sits, that's not the security company, so it's kind of us plus the different agencies, isn't it? And how does that get taken forward?
Craig, do you want to answer that? Because I think quite a lot of what Councillor Ellis has raised is already happening. So Craig, if you want to just update.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Chair. So we have been having service level agreement meetings with SWL to analyse the statistics and the intelligence that we've been getting. We have subsequently had introductory meetings with John Emer, Andy Gloyn and the PCSO supervisor Sam Bushen to just kind of start to establish that relationship and the communications. And I think the invitation has been extended to the local policing team to be part of those service level agreements. So when we discuss those analytics and the types of activities, we're having that kind of cohesive conversation with the relevant stakeholders. And I know that our street marshal has also engaged with the local RSI team at Somerset. So we can certainly bring them into those conversations to start formulating those strategic priorities to address some of these long-term issues.
So will we hear back, like with engagement with RSI, like what will he sort of feed back to us? Will somebody, oh, well, they're saying, oh, we don't have the resources, or there are people are refusing help, or explaining actually what's going on?
I think it's really important that we do get those kind of challenges from the RSI team, you know, put out onto the table. And I think what we do have is we have a recurring invitation for SWL to be providing updates on our future community and place committee meetings, and therefore we can, you know, then share some of the real issues and difficulties that you know, our stakeholders and our partners have, and actually how we can collectively address them, so we can be feeding back on a regular basis through the committee meetings.
Yeah.
So a big thank you to Beth and Stephen. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for the updates, really interesting. And I think Craig, you said you'd circulate those. Yeah,
I can circulate those.
Craig can circulate the slides to us afterwards, so we can have a look at those
Yeah.
figures. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. 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 The next item should be CCTV reporting, but what we're going to do is just because I'm chair and I can, I'm just going to rearrange the agenda slightly, and I'd just like to bring in agenda item 15, which is the budget considerations, so that Gail can give us her report. To you, Gail. Thank you.
That was the presentation of post budget next year. Discussions about items that are in that, but overall the salaries are increased to support structure. And then on the grants committee have allocated 25,000 of the monies across to pieces in place to cover annual events that occur every year and therefore technically don't fit the grants budget. So that's been moved across, and in addition, a number of the items in town centre events have been split out into individual lines, so that each of the events can be better monitored. In addition, propose that we purchase a youth bus, which is shown, you can see in the capital expenditure. And going with that, there were a number of expenditure items, including potentially a youth worker. In there, and that overall increases the community place budget, mainly because some of the things have been moved from other areas as well, by about £600,000 this year in terms of expenditure. And then moving on to the civic, that's increased very slightly due to the fact that we put in the twinning and hosting events and increased the civic activity. That's increased by about 5,000. So the proposed budget, for which you have the papers, that's where what we're proposing.
Including the additional things that.
Additional things that we discussed, which were putting up the price by 10,000.
Before we get on to the, I was just going to say, before we just move on, has anybody got any questions? Go to the recommendations. Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, on youth, there are youth organisations out there that will need funding next year. So I think there are issues, so there's a discussion to be had about how we spend whatever was earmarked left over, which I was expecting to go out in grants, wasn't expecting us to hang on to it. So the idea of a youth bus, I mean, this is literally the second time I've heard of it. Sounds, you know, I don't know, there's no background on that. Who's going to use it? And then you've just mentioned we're going to have a youth worker. We're going to employ a youth worker or something.
That's what was discussed in the pre-meeting budget. Craig actually went to the youth bus in operation, so I think he'd be able to fill you in better on how that works and how one.
Yeah, that would be. I think it needs to be in the open. I think we need to have a discussion about that. I mean, it sounds great, but I also know that there are youth things that are already ongoing that serve deprived areas of Taunton that will need support next year. They're not currently in our youth grant programme, and we mustn't let them down. So if that means pulling in some extra money, fine. And I'm assuming, since we're being so specific about things like youth buses, but I don't know, it's probably not in our budget, not in community in place, but Goodland Gardens Bridge. I will have one almighty if there's no budget line for Goodland Gardens Bridge somewhere in next year's budget, given that it's a big ticket item, we've already invested, we've done loads of engagement, there's public need. So I don't know, it probably isn't, presumably it's ops and assets. I'm not sure where I should be looking for that. You know, certain things we're quite specific about, and when we've got that level of specificity about something which we haven't discussed, I'm expecting to see a greater level of specificity about things that have been discussed ad nauseam and where we've already committed funds. So where should I be looking for a Goodland Gardens?
That's in the capital, so that's in service growth and improvement, and that's part of the capital projects that have been set aside. So we've set aside 250,000. I don't believe that you've got that paper here because this is specific to this.
That won't be enough then. But presumably there's still as well. I don't know where it will set out what still we'll have to play with next year, if that's already going to go into the general, all the figures for what we can actually spend. So
I believe the still money is being looked at.
Just specifically for the parks.
I think that was a major project that we were looking.
There will be another chance to debate all of them, because it's not just the specific areas, it's how everything fits together, isn't it? As a whole, an understanding, oh no, that's not there, but it's here, that's here. But I do issue this warning. We need to make some provision next year for youth budget money that it's not us spending it on a bus, or as great as that may be, advisory board I thought we were going to have as well, which presumably that might need some element of funding attached. But I just think we need to not miss a trick here, because if we haven't budgeted for it, somebody will come along and say we desperately need funds to do this, to carry this forward, and we have made provision. So I just issue that warning. We definitely need to do that. It sounds like it's this committee that needs to do that, not another committee. Yeah, the bridge was an asset, but youth, yeah.
This committee.
It's youth services, like, I can give you a very concrete example if you like, but I'm just really worried about it. So I just want to sort of really flag that up now. Because I know for a fact there will be things that need funding that are not within the youth grants funding stream that we've already agreed, you know, the next 3 years. Mustn't miss a trick on that, otherwise we'll really regret it and people will.
Are you referring to as in grants?
Yeah.
So that would really need to go to the grants committee for them to decide, because they've already had their meeting and decided their budget, which they're recommending to, you know, finance and governance to council.
Well, I keep saying, I'm going to say the same thing at every single meeting I'm at and then see where it turns up in a budget. And if it doesn't, yeah, there will be consequences if we don't. I'm not saying we need to make a massive amount, but I just know for an absolute fact there are things that will need money that we can't do ourselves, that are about other voluntary organisations who are trying to reach out and doing really great stuff and reaching deprived areas, and we need to support them, and we don't, but there will need to be additional provision. I've said that at grants, whether anyone takes any notice or not is not a matter, but I've said it at grants and I'll say it here, and any single other meeting that I'm at, I will be saying the same thing. Hopefully that will wend its way into a budget line somewhere. Otherwise, I think, you know, they're looking good. There's an awful lot of work being done here. Just that on certain things, I just think we absolutely, things like bridge, things like youth funding, we absolutely mustn't miss a trick there, because they're really key. And if we sort of inadvertently don't budget for it, or it's not in the correct budget line and we don't want to be in that position.
Thank you, and I think we can I can certainly find out what's happening with the youth provision of grant funding. I can find out, or somebody can let me know if there's been a proportion in the grant in the
Well, there was 50,000, but that's obviously already allocated because they had a 3-year commitment for the 50,000. The grants committee did not resolve to put any additional funds in. Specifically, that's agreed at the last grants committee.
Yeah, I'm obviously missed a trick there, because I should have proposed some sort of resolution or something then. But the money, we weren't proposing to increase any of the budget lines, but there was 50 grand. Originally we said we were going to invest 100k in youth provision. Well, we haven't this year. We haven't so far. We've invested 50k very wisely in really good projects over 3 years. We've got some exciting project work that Ollie's leading on coming forward. That's brilliant. But the extra 50k was never in grants. It was stuck somewhere. I can't remember where. It was on some other random budget line, which I'm assuming is coming under communities in place. So maybe it's actually for this committee to, I don't know, via something to grants or come up with some proposal on that.
certainly take it into consideration what you discussed. Have a look at it. Definitely. Any more questions, Councillor O'Donnell?
Yes, well, I'm just looking at the budget. So the 50,000, two things I'm just going to say. First one is we didn't have the £50,000 in the budget for the youth grant. Are we going to some of the projects there?
So the grants committee have got 50,000 committed for youth grants. It was for 3 years, so they committed it last year. So next year's budget will be the year 2, and then the following year will be the year 3. So they have already committed 50,000.
That 50,000 is in our budget, though, isn't it? Not the grants. And I'm reading this correctly. Yeah. Grant. Community grant.
Yes. I'm so glad you're here, Craig.
Okay, it's just got it there. My other, so what I think worth, because as far as I'm seeing, we've got 50,000 budget line for youth. That's for youth work. Okay. Without them having to go to the grants. My other question was talking about Goodlings Garden Bridge. I'm conscious that the consultation period ended 15th, and I was wondering, is that coming to this committee?
No,
report on
I
that?
don't think so. It'll go to obsolescence? Will it
Go to obsolescence.
Yeah, I'd imagine it would be.
I think it's go to operations and asset.
Should we look at,
Confirm with Paul.
Yeah.
Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, no, it looks like this 50 grand, which was in service growth, right? This is what we haven't touched this year. It's now so hard to read without lines. I keep losing my place. I've lost my place again. Where was it? Seems like was. Oh, no, 50,000, and then that's become 15,000, but it's all gone over to, is that gone over to youth bus thing?
I was looking at under community grants, the section community grants. Which is-
Bear with. Confused me.
Sorry, Chair.
Can I just speak?
Yes.
Currently, £50,000 committed in the grants pot, but not spent this year's budget. But it will not be, it won't be spent until March, because that's when the original monies were allocated. So each March, so this year will be the second one, that will be part of this year's budget, and then next year there'll be another 50. So that's in the grants pot, and that will stay in the grants pot next year. It was 50,000, as Councillor Ellis. Service growth and improvement, which has been reduced to 15, and the 35 was moved across to communities in place to support us. Next year.
We're spending, how much do you want to spend on the youth bus? 35,000 on a youth bus. Is there any other money left over that is not for the youth bus related thing? As it stands at the moment.
There's 15 of
50. There's 15 that we could use to support existing youth provision if we chose to.
Yeah, I think that's allocated towards the youth that Ollie's working.
So there isn't, what I'm talking about is we need to make it, what I'm arguing is we need to make additional provision. I'd like some more info about the youth bus and everything. I mean, it sounds great, but I'm a bit confused now. If we're hiring somebody to take it out the bus, or who's going to use it, all of that sounds great. I mean, it's great to be specific, but everything needs, certain other big things as well we need to be specific on.
I think the important thing to sort of hang on to as well is the fact that obviously we are discussing the draft, and this is all subject to decision when it goes to full council. So all of this is up for discussion, whether it stays in, whether it comes out. You know, at the moment, this is what we are looking at as a committee. But again, once it's got to go to full council in January, and then there'll be further discussion about what goes in and what stays and what doesn't. So, you know, this is what we are requesting that we would like to see is as a community in place committee in the budget for next year.
We're not having to vote. Are we tonight voting on saying this is what we're recommending? Because I can't vote for it then, because it doesn't have what I need to see in there, the extra bit for you.
So what
I would be remiss if I didn't say that.
I'll just say what we're being asked to recommend, and then I'll go to Donna. So we're being asked to consider the budget for community in place, and we're being asked to recommend that the full council notes the budget for community in place for 2025-2026. So I'll go to Donna and then Councillor Garside.
I was just going to say, so what you've just said, so you are, as a committee, you are agreeing what your request is to service your committee area. That will then go to Finance and Governance Committee in December. There's been an extra meeting held. We would expect the chairs of each committee to come to represent their budgets that they're putting through. Finance and Governance will make a decision, and they will make a recommendation to full council that this is the overall budget based on the feedback that we've had from each of the committees and their requests, and that will go to full council in January, and then it will be for council to make a decision as to whether or not they agree with that recommendation. There is again an opportunity for you at that point to say that I think we should have an extra 50,000, whatever is in your youth grants, but I think you're asking for money to be made available to other organisations. And so that's not something that would necessarily sit within the communities in place. It would be the grants and sponsorship. And because that meeting has already taken place now, and they've recommended their budget, which is going to finance and governance, I think your next opportunity will be either at finance and governance or again then at full count. So I'm not sure it is for this committee because you're asking for the money to go to other organisations, which is not in the remit of this area.
Okay, and just remind me, sorry, because I'm aging and I forget what people have just said. Bridge. So there's 250 grand in this our thing for a bridge or somebody else's thing? It's not. Whose budget is it? Which committee does that sit on?
So that would be under finance and well, operations and assets and finance and governance, because it's an overarching pot of money to service any initiatives, capital projects that come on. There's no specific budget heading that says bridge. Then that's for you as a council to debate at finance and governance, or for that full council if you want to add that in. We focused on the service areas and some additional money for some projects, but they could incorporate a few different elements. Like we say, you've got the seal money there, but there's aspirations for that for play parks and open spaces. Obviously, there's the bridge, and there's lots of projects that you could go to. But as a council, that's for you to decide.
So finance and governance is where I need to be making proposals. If the same budget papers come forward, which they probably will, it will be saying, well, there's not enough for a bridge here, or there's no bridge budget line. That's a problem. There's no extra funding for external youth organisations, but we seem to be wanting to spend stuff on things that we're going to do, which could be great, but I just don't have any information on which to base it. So the time I need to have my whatever next is finance and governance.
Finance
Prior to and then full council as well. In January budget one.
Councillor Garside then. Councillor Strauss.
I'd just like to support Councillor Ellis in her request for money to be made available, because this is, this is clearly a big problem in our town. And I mean, I saw it when we went to the brew house to their AGM, and Vicky Roberts was standing guard on the door because of potential vandalism, antisocial behaviour outside the brew house. She said they were throwing bricks and coming in and causing havoc in the theatre. I mean, this can't go on. We can't go on like this. And this is just one report. I've heard so many reports from other people. Gibbons and Richards on the High Street reported seeing some shocking behaviour on the High Street on a Saturday afternoon. Shocking behaviour. People come up to me all the time complaining about this kind of thing, and it was in our manifesto, and we haven't done anything about it, and it's time we did.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I think there are things that are going to be happening as regarding, because there's two things. There's different things about the youth provision. There's lots of youth organisations that are out there that are doing good work around this. There's also the antisocial behaviour side of it. That side of thing is going to be looking to be addressed with the street marshal, with looking at different works, with working in partnerships with our colleagues in the police, and also with Charmaine Dine with the violence reduction partnership. So, and I think there's all of these things are it's going to take that process of time and money, and making sure that the youth engagement side of things, we can look at what's happening there. We can work with the partners that are already doing fantastic work within our town and so on. So, but thank you for your thoughts, and thank you for feeding that in. It's really useful. Councillor Strauss.
To clarify, has operations and assets already had its budget meeting, or is this still to come?
Yes, they have.
So it's too late for the bridge to be brought up under that particular committee.
Well, at the time we met, the consultation was still going.
Yeah.
So when the time we met, we didn't actually have the budget in front of us beforehand. It was just flashed up on screen.
And so actually it was presented to us quite whole.
It's just, I understand, because it's difficult putting together budgets.
But every member of the Ops and Assets has had the budget to review. If I can ask questions.
Because
It's next.
am I right in saying it is an asset? Therefore, it should theoretically
Donna.
Yes, but what you also have to think about is something that's going to be, as a committee, you have £100,000 limit to spend. That is going to be over £100,000.
Yes.
So therefore, it would be a decision of council that would be under the whole finance and governance
Right.
committee and full council debates, the bigger ticket items.
Do they on
Like
the
capital
grounds of
projects.
sponsor rather than subject matter?
And it's not been an informal ratified decision of the council is to
So thank you. So going back to our recommendations. So we've considered the budget and now we're being asked to recommend that the full council notes the budget for community and place for 25-26. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Strauss. Seconder. Councillor Firmin. All those in favour?
Just noting, I'm agreeing with it.
You're recommending it to finance and governance.
Okay.
As in, this is our budget. But bear in mind what it is that I've just said. I think you're requesting money for, which really should sit within the grants committee,
Okay.
not within this committee. If you're looking to give money to other organisations, that should have been something that's put through the grants.
What we're voting on, what we're recommending is what we would like to do as a community in place committee and what our officers can actually achieve under community in place. That's what we are voting on.
And with the youth bus, if we end up having to reformulate that because nobody's discussed it, how it would work, I have no clue what if. I've gleaned there's a vehicle, I've gleaned X, Y, Z. I don't understand what the plan is behind it. It could be amazing for all I know, probably is, I don't know. But if we decide actually we can't do that, presumably we can just rebadge as use something else.
And also, it as I say, full council finance and governance it's got to go through those processes, and it may be that those processes will say that actually no, it's not a good idea. So again, but we as a community, the community in place, I think it's a brilliant idea. And I think this is the way forward about looking at what we can do more for youth within the town council. We have to make a start. We have to make a start somewhere. And I think it's an exciting prospect for this committee and for community in place. But there's certainly going to be lots of discussion around it. Absolutely. And it's not just going to be, yeah, we're getting a bus and that's it. No, there's going to be lots and lots of discussion for us as a committee about really what exciting things we can actually do with that project, with the organisations at the moment that are, and it may be that we can help those organisations out in different ways.
Presumably there are organisations that we have in mind to work with vis-a-vis the bus that we know would want said, yeah, that would be great, we would use it. There'll be a paper at some point coming telling us.
Yeah, there's going to be lots of engagement. I mean, there's a way to go, but there'll be engagement with services and organisations before we go that. Perhaps for Firmin.
I was just going to say, there'll be a discussion at the pre-meeting about letting other organisations use the bus or hiring our own youth officer for doing engagement, but that's in discussion.
Could we possibly go back to the recommendation? So we've got a proposal. We've got Councillor O'Donnell. Are we in favour of recommending this to full council? Thank you. Thank you. Discussions will continue. So we've gone slightly off. So let's go back onto CCTV reporting and having a verbal update from Craig about the CCTV.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So Ollie, if you're able to share a few slides onto the screen, that would be great. So if you just move to the next slide. Since we've signed the service level agreement with the CCTV provision at Somerset Council, I think the next slide, hopefully there's a few more. We've managed to engage with the new CCTV manager, Sedgemoor in Bridgewater. Bridgewater in Sedgemoor, apologies. Jamie Lee has been kind of like settling in, and she's been able to pull off some initial reports. So I'm going to go through some of the slides that she has sent us from the information that she's got access to at the moment. So I thought it'd be really, really useful. So what she's given us here is the top 10 most used cameras in Taunton. So this helps to identify actually what kind of like antisocial behaviour might be happening across Taunton. And obviously, as you see from the top 10 cameras, most of these are primarily focused around East Street, East Reach and North Street as kind of problem areas around the town centre. If you just go to the next slide. So the top 10 cameras obviously collectively have kind of recorded 630 hours of content, and you can see the breakdown of those hours across the town centre. So those little squares, the little key is probably really difficult to read, and I apologise for that. But the most used cameras are pretty much on East Reach. We are consuming like nearly 13, well, yeah, just over 13% of the recorded time, closely followed by the camera on North Street, St James's Street of nearly 10%. So if we just go to the next slide. So from the cameras that have been reported, so this report here is from 1st of November to the 19th of November, when the reports were collated. So what we can see here is actually 41%, if I'm rounding it up, relate to kind of theft activity that's been identified through the CCTV provision, with nearly 30% being antisocial behaviour, 17% being around about, 17% being for assault, and other bits and pieces there, relatively small, like weapons, 3%, traffic offences, 3%. And I can circulate these slides so you can have a look at these in a bit more detail after the committee. So if you just go to the next slide. So the next slide is 169 of recorded hours of crime reporting. So this is actually from the last 3 months. So that includes the November, October and September. So September there were 41, October there was 48, and November to date there were 25. So over 3 months, Jamie has been able to inform us that there was one camera that had a fault, which was camera 332. That means the camera in Duke Street, and it was down for a total of 6 days. Now this is kind of the information that has been included within the service level agreement that they should be including or sending over to us to be included within our committees on a bi-monthly basis. And then here on this particular slide, you then have the percentage breakdowns again, with 42% being theft, around about 23% for antisocial behaviour, 6% being traffic offences. So I thought this was really, really useful information. It was really good that we've got this information coming back through from the CCTV team. So if there are any kind of specific questions or any kind of requests that you may have from the CCTV team, if you'd let me know, and I'm happy to kind of take that forward with the CCTV team to see whether we can get that information for you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Firmin, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. Do we have any data about whether the footage that has been used from these cameras has led to, either arrests or convictions? Has there been sort of justice from these footages being used by the police or any other organisation?
Thank you, Councillor Firmin. So we know that there are reports going from the CCTV room to the local policing team. I don't know how much has been kind of investigated from the police with regards to the actual incident and what kind of conviction rates there have been, but there is a conversation to be had, I guess, with the local policing team to see whether we can tally up and find out how effective the CCTV is with regards to the information they're putting through to the police and carrying out those convictions.
Councillor Ellis.
What is, I think it says, fail to stop. I can't read what it says.
Yes, fail to stop.
Is that
Fail to, is that, what is that? Fail to stop doing what?
So this would be my interpretation, and because of the positioning of the CCTV cameras, that would be failed to stop on a red light. So through the traffic light system through the town centre, running a red light as such.
Running a red light. And what's the one in blue? I can't read the letters.
DUI.
DUI. What's that again? I feel I should know this, and I can't remember.
So again, this would be my interpretation. I'll seek some clarification, but that would be driving under influence, driving or drugs under influence. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. But yeah, I can share these with you, and if there are any further questions from that, then we can pick them up subsequently.
I was just gonna, Ollie, I'm just gonna shuffle things around on the agenda again. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, with members' permission, I would just like to move up the process for the report for the selection of the mayor and deputy mayor as the next agenda item. I think this is, we've got lots of things, I think, and discussions on this one. So I'd like to hand over to Joe to talk us through this report.
Hopefully you've all had a chance to read the paper and the appendix that was attached to the agenda. Following on from a meeting of the Civic Task and Finish Group on Tuesday the 1st of October, it was highlighted that we should refresh our selection process for the deputy mayor. Ideally to make it open, transparent and inclusive, because at the moment everything happens behind closed doors at group level, and we want this process to be future-proof. We may not always have a majority within our council, so we want to make this really clear and open. So I've proposed, following those discussions, a process to follow. And like I said, hopefully you've had a read of that process within the papers, which follows a process in a non-election year and in an election year, because obviously there's different connotations on each side as to what happens in terms of dates and when things need to be done, and how the continuation of a chair happens if there's a break. But if there's any specific questions that you want to ask about the appendix and the proposed structure process, see, fire away. Apologies, I've got a really sore throat, so I'm really struggling to talk. Sorry.
Anybody got any questions for Joe? Councillor Strauss, Councillor Garside.
To clarify this meeting in March, Joe.
Yeah.
Talking about the election effectively of the deputy mayor, the recommendation for the deputy mayor. Now, actually, in March, the deputy mayor has already been nominated by that stage. We're talking about, is the current deputy mayor then called the mayor-elect? And then we're actually electing the deputy mayor who will be taking office at that general meeting, because there's a little bit of confusion there.
Yeah. So what we're asking for here is for our next deputy mayor coming up through the ranks, so that when we come to our annual council meeting, obviously we will, first item of business is to elect our chair and then our deputy. So we've already done that for this year.
Yes.
We still need to elect our chair regardless. So even though we traditionally expect our current deputy to assume the role of mayor, that isn't so until it's been voted for.
I know that.
So you are still deputy mayor at that point until you become either Councillor Strauss or the mayor.
No, I understand that,
Okay.
but I thought at that meeting, February, March, whenever we hold it, we're also going to discuss who will be the mayor to follow on after that. So we need to get our terminology right.
So we have our current mayor, and we have gone through a process already to select our deputy. So when we come to our annual meeting of council, we would be voting for our mayor, which would
Yes.
naturally be assumed that our deputy mayor will take that role, but they aren't chair until they're voted in. We're looking for the person that's coming up through the ranks.
So
we're looking for somebody that will follow you.
So would it be helpful to say deputy mayor 2025-26?
Yes, that's how we
and
would.
2026-27. Because effectively,
But we're looking for 2025, 26 deputy mayor, aren't we? At the
Yes, but I
moment.
thought we were also going to, at that point, elect the person who would be deputy mayor at the mayor making ceremony. We're not doing that.
I
Well,
think,
that's
I
the
think
whole
you might be just running ahead. We're looking for one role. So at the moment, all we're doing is looking for the deputy which would succeed the next mayor. So we're a year ahead, aren't we? So at the moment, we've got mayor for 2024, 25, and we've got our deputy mayor 2024, 25.
Yes,
We've got our deputy mayor, which would assume a nomination to become chair for
yes,
25, 26, and we're looking for the deputy mayor to sit alongside that.
yes.
That's what we're looking for at the moment. So we're not looking any further ahead than that. We're just looking for the next person. At the moment, we've got 2 roles, haven't we?
We have.
Which will shortly become just the one. So we're looking for that one to come up through the ranks. It's complicated because we're ahead of the curve, aren't we? But what we've had in the last couple of years is decisions made quite last minute. And it's been apparent sort of very early
I agree.
May or late April who the current mayor is going to be succeeded by. Doesn't give us any time to do any groundwork, any training, any briefing. We don't have discussions
I'm-
with charities, so
I'm
we're
in
just
full
trying to
agreement,
sort
don't
of
get me wrong.
pull the dates back a little bit,
Yeah.
give everybody the opportunity to throw their hat into the ring, so it's not just done by group selection. It's an open and transparent procedure. I think the key point is how we actually vote and how we make that choice, and how that we do that in a public forum rather than behind a closed door, so that everybody can have a say and vote anonymously with a closed ballot, with a show of hands once we've counted those ballots to agree that winner, that everybody is happy for that person to assume that role.
In full agreement with all of that. I'm still confused over the terminology. Because what I thought we were going to be doing effectively is deciding at that meeting who will be the deputy mayor at the mayor making.
We are, but we're doing that. We're asking for the nominations in March
We are.
for that person for May. You're right. That's what we're
Yeah.
doing.
Okay, thank you.
We're doing so that we have everybody that we need. So we'll have our outgoing mayor, our incoming mayor, and our incoming deputy.
Very confused.
That's okay. That's the goal stand.
I was just going to ask, how would we nominate somebody to be this?
So
next
the first thing that we do in the procedure note, is that the mayor, ahead of the meeting, the full council meeting early in March, will put out a request for nominations. And as part of that pack, I've drawn up a nomination form or a proposed nomination form that anybody can fill in. There is a proposer and a seconder required.
Yeah.
Once all those forms are gathered in, they will be shared out as part of the agenda pack for people to read through. There will be an opportunity then at the set meeting for selection for proposers and seconders to make their case, and for the candidates to say something if they wish prior to the vote. And we can utilise full council, or we could utilise our public town meeting, whichever feels correct at the time. As long as we have everybody there and everybody can vote, and it's a public forum, I think it just makes it a much more transparent way of selecting and letting people showcase what they'd like to bring to the table as mayor and what their hopes and their aspirations are beyond just, I'd like to be mayor.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Donnell and
Yeah.
Councillor Ellis.
Yes, so I think it's very good, and I'll just clarify. I mean, it does say in our report, Councillor Strauss, that the election of deputy mayor is the second item of business that is actually in the report there. I was going to ask 2 things. One, it says ahead of the meeting of full council. I was wondering if there should actually be a time limit, because it just says submissions are received. I mean, are they going to give for 2 weeks, a month? I mean, I know we have about 2 weeks in May that comes about, but I was wondering if it should be worth having a.
As the dates are, they do change every year. I've avoided putting a specific in,
Yeah.
but obviously we
That's
would
wondering.
work to a fortnight before, or
Yeah, well, it's
the agenda goes out a week before, so we would need them at least a week before that. So
the second question I was going to ask is, do we really need a process for election year and a non-election year? Can we just not use the same process every year? And instead of having 1B as a
process for a non-election year. We just have 1B as the process when a vacancy arises, at any point a vacancy arises. Because I just think, is there any reason why we can't elect who we think should be a deputy mayor in March before an election?
I think it's when that person fails to be nominated, that's where you fails to be elected, and we have had that in the past where we are on a knife edge where we've got all of our ducks in a row in terms of who we would like to assume those roles, and then the election happens, they don't win their seat. However, if that person is chair prior to that election and they don't win their seat, they continue in the role as chair until they aren't.
I mean, we have that same issue with the deputy mayor anyway, because the deputy mayor will have to fight an election, so there's nothing guaranteed the deputy mayor will be elected. So I just thinking it just saves time, you know, if it's 1 or 2, or and then you just got the one process. Otherwise you've got a process for years 1, 2 and 3, and then a different one for year 4. Whereas I think we could just have one process, and then the second process just comes in as and when a vacancy occurs. Just seems a little bit more efficient to me.
Donna, do you have any comments on that?
I can see where you're coming from. It makes it cleaner. But then there obviously is the issues with the elections that if we don't get nominated, that's why it's put in. So it just makes it very clear.
In hospitality and leisure, I am a professional in the industry, although I retired 5 years ago. But I am a full member of the Institute of Hospitality, which is the professional body for the industry. And this is what really started me off in this process. So if I can just talk a little bit about the 3 elements. I don't want to take up a lot of time because it's getting late and I want you to feel free to ask any questions. There are 3 basic elements. One's an award scheme. The second is facilitating professional hospitality qualification, which I'll come back to. Thirdly, leisure travel initiatives. Talk about the award scheme first of all. Award schemes provide a focal point. Very popular, they get good publicity. We, as I say, are facilitators. Most of the work will actually be involving other organisations. But there are 2 groups which I feel we really need to think about in Taunton today. One is young people. We keep coming back to young people. And as you know, there's a big problem with the hospitality industry, hasn't been helped. I'm not making a party political statement now, but everybody knows as a result of the last budget, the costs of the hospitality industry have gone up dramatically. The overhead cost of Mr. Miles has just gone up by £45,000. That's just one, not particularly large business in the town, but it's a huge amount of money. And that's affecting employment within the industry. So I want to have a focus on 2 areas of the hospitality industry. One is an award scheme for young people, young chef, young waiter, young housekeeper. It could be all sorts of things. But again, I'm not suggesting we do all this ourselves. The Secretary of Visit Exeter is also a very senior member of the Institute of Hospitality, and they already run an award scheme. He's offered to help me. He likes the whole concept of what I'm trying to do, so he's offered his assistance. And following Donna's request, I'll be approaching the Chamber of Commerce to get them involved as well. But we can get a lot of help to make this happen. I just want to see Taunton Town Council as part of this, certainly not doing all of the work. So that's basically an award scheme. And the other area, I mentioned young people. We have a growing number of ethnic restaurants in Taunton. And both Nick and Vanessa have visited many of these new businesses when they started, and they seem to be springing up the whole time. We've got a very large number of good ethnic restaurants, Caribbean, Portuguese, French and Caribbean. So I think it's a very worthwhile exercise to support these businesses. So the award scheme will be in 2 parts, one for young people and one for ethnic restaurants, the details of which we can sort out through the working group. The second item is professional hospitality qualification. Now, it might surprise you that qualifications in hospitality are very weak in the Southwest. You can get qualifications up to level 3, which is supervisory, but it's very hard to get any qualification above that. Somerset is looking to have a university rather than just a university centre at Bridgewater and Taunton College. And they have a very good hospitality department. Now, we had a meeting a few months ago between this town council, the Chamber of Commerce and the college. And I spoke to the business development manager of the college, who was very receptive to the idea of having a higher level qualification, which would really put Taunton on the map. And the Institute of Hospitality can bring in specialist skills, which can enable the college to bolt on to existing what they can already do, but it can take them a stage further. So that's the second idea, that we could facilitate a high level qualification, which is so important to put Taunton on the map. I'd like us to become the gateway to the Southwest. And that leads me on to the third initiative, which is to do with travel. Now, within, say, 2 hours by train from Taunton, and Taunton is a main railway hub, you can reach many interesting places. I had an informal meeting with the Deputy Mayor of Looe when I was down there a few weeks ago, and he was very receptive to my idea. We've supported our Tourist Information Office, and I see the Tourist Information Offices in these places as promoting each other's towns. And Taunton is a major hub to bring people in from other parts of the country into the Southwest. Also, GWR could well finance the whole package, because GWR are very interested in promoting travel in the Southwest. And one of our friends, David Northey, has a lot of influence in travel, and I want to bring him on board to see how we can work together to get interest from people like GWR. All of which is making Taunton even more attractive to people come to then go on to other parts of the Southwest and vice versa. So that's the reason for this, to actually set this up. It's not going to cost a great deal of money. It's more time than money. And I already had a lot of contacts that I can bring in to help us to achieve this. I just want to make one last point. We did talk about the award scheme. If this is part of the mayoralty in my year, and then the following year, the mayor decides to have a completely different theme for the year, we can use the model of the award scheme that we've used this year for hospitality to use the mechanism to have other award schemes. So it could go on from year to year in the same way that Vanessa bringing in the World Art Games to Taunton, which is coming in my year. So the activities of my year should go forward into future years. There should be an ongoing benefit. I'm not asking for a great deal of money. I've agreed with Craig, we ought to have a contingency fund of £5,000 for pump priming, basically, and little bits of publicity that we might want to use as Taunton. But I'm not looking primarily for money. I'm looking for a medium where we can involve other people. So what I'm asking for at this stage is approval to set up this working group where I can bring in outside experts working with councillors to actually make these ideas happen. I've been working on this since I was elected deputy mayor. I now need to go to the next stage and actually formally go to people and ask for the help for next year. That's all I think I've said more than enough. I hope that's made the whole thing clearer, and I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Strauss. Has anybody got any questions?
Not a question. I'd just like to say I'm very much in support of it. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I think Taunton needs that, something like this, a direction to draw people in, you know, to make it more of a tourist attraction, because at the moment it's not.
So we are being, have to go sort of round the corner or just go.
No, I'm very happy. I think this is a fantastic idea. In terms of the awards, my only observation is that I like the award for young people. I think highlighting young people, fantastic. Highlighting one set of restaurants over another, and I'm wondering whether the award should actually be more about the food, and less about the origin of where the food comes from. Actually, we just, any restaurant can come up with a fantastic dish, really good, authentic dish, and I think they should all be open to that award.
That thought had occurred to me myself. It was a starting point.
Yeah.
The whole idea is the working group will get together as soon as possible, report back to this committee.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why we can't amend this.
I
This
think
is starting.
Yeah, so we want to, we're celebrating diversity, and it's a wide diversity rather than just looking at one particular element.
Thank you. I think that's what the working group will tease out. Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, I just want to say I support this, and I agree with Nick. I mean, some of our what you might call ethnic restaurants are winning in awards anyway. They are absolutely, Matt and Cherry Turmeric Kitchen, got the new one, Kutan. I'm sure they will do very well. This is actually, it's really interesting though that we are in terms of, we want Indian food. Taunton has absolutely superb restaurants, and they tend to have vegan menus as well.
They do.
So they tend to actually be doing a lot for the environment in with that. So that's quite interesting. But I think, hopefully your group, it can be, you might discover, I love the idea of the professional hospitality qualification. I'm a bit shocked that doesn't exist.
No, it's terrible.
A bit shocked. And if you think there's something that we can contribute to putting that right, that's quite exciting.
Well, I think it's part of the town, and we work with the college. So just knowing that we support the idea in principle might be the spur they need. And particularly I can bring in experts to help them with that.
So, Councillor Firmin, yes. I've just got to just indicate the time. Are we all, can I have a proposal that we extend by another half an hour? Are we all happy?
Yeah.
Are we all in? Proposer?
Yes, come on. That's fine.
Yes, that's yeah.
We need to vote.
Vote all in favour? Councillor Firmin.
Yes, I just saw in the sort of the news websites today, there's sort of news that they're trying to connect the Great Western Railway line, the Minehouse, up to the main line.
Yes.
That can play into that as well.
Yes, well,
That was something
again, David Norby is the key to this. We've known about this for over a year. It's actually now in the public press. It's going to cost very little because they're going to work to Heritage Railway rules, which is 25 miles an hour, but GWR will actually operate the trains at times when the Heritage Railway can't. So it's going to mean a much more regular service, and you can get through ticketing from, say, Glasgow via Taunton to Minehead, which again is bringing people into the town. So yes, I'm firmly in favour of that.
Fabulous. So we are, if there's no more questions, we are being asked to consider the request.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, John.
Oh, sorry.
Craig.
I just wanted to highlight about the importance of just kind of just making a clear demarcation between the roles of the mayor and the councillor as part of this setup. So it would be as kind of councillor as opposed to it being related to a mayoral two things. So just want to make that clear.
Can I just make the observation, although I don't want to announce formally the mayor's charity at this stage, because we've discussed this already, but it would fit in with this project, all I want to say.
Yeah, I think we just need to be careful that we don't stray into blurred lines between mayoral responsibilities, mayoral fundraising and mayoral activity and activities undertaken as councillor. Councillor Garside undertook a lot of work, arts and culture related, but was done as councillor under the arts and culture working group and strategy and all of those things. So we just need to be careful we don't blur the lines and get ourselves confused between our role as councillor and our role as a civic lead.
I will always listen to you, Jo.
That's good.
Thank you very much.
And I think that's a valid point, Jo. And I think because the working group will report back to us, we can provide that scrutiny if need be from time to time.
I realise there is a demarcation line.
It's just being cautious when we're sort of pitching to other organisations to get involved, that they're joining a town council initiative rather than a mayoral initiative, because in a sense that's what you're asking them
Well,
to do.
before I say anything in public, I will consult you.
Wise words. Thank you. So if we're so happy to sort of move forwards, we are asked to consider the request to create a working group to support the hospitality, tourism and leisure sector, and to approve the proposed terms of reference, which was attached to the papers for this. We're also being asked to consider and note the 3 primary objectives for the working group set out in the agenda request form, and that would be the awards scheme, the professional hospitality qualification and leisure travel initiatives, and I propose that we vote on them as a whole. And I have a proposer, Councillor O'Donnell, and a seconder, Councillor Garside. All those in favour?
I think you are allowed to vote.
You're allowed to declare an interest.
Thank you. So just to shake things up, one more time, we're just going to move up the sponsorship process up further up the agenda. So I'm keeping you awake, you see. So I'm delighted we've got Will here, our grants officer, who's here to assist us if we've got any issues or questions that come up when we're looking at this particular recommendation. So we are being asked to note the recommendation from the Grants Committee to transfer the sponsorship policy to Community and Place Committee. That's one. And the second one is either to note that the 5 key events may limit sponsorship opportunities to others, and it's recommended to remove the support for those 5 key events and instead assess applicants on an individual basis.
Yeah, thank you. So just to provide some background, there was a recommendation from the Finance and Grants Committee to kind of transfer £25,000 that was previously allocated to 5 key events that took place in Taunton. And to we recognised, or they recognised, that actually these would be 5 key events that would be repeatedly coming back through to the Sponsorship and Grants Committee for this money. So maybe it would be better placed to transfer this fund over to the Community in Place team, so that actually we can have our culture officer and our communications officer to work more closely with those events, raising the profile of Taunton, but also making sure that we're getting everything we possibly need to through the sponsorship funding. So yeah, I mean, are there any questions? Oh, there are a few questions. Okay, great.
Why the carnival is not one of the key events, since it's a recurring event, it happens every single year. They didn't come to the grants committee this year because they thought they weren't allowed to. But they are deserving of sponsorship, because I mean they're all volunteers. They work throughout the year. They try and they do their best to raise money. They're all, you know, they are often short of money. That's all.
I just,
is there any reason why they're not part of it?
I'll just briefly answer. I don't think it was anything. There was nothing intentional about it. I think it was just they were just picked. Those 5 particular ones were the ones that actually come for things. So I don't think there's any intentionally. I will go to Donna first, because she could probably provide some update on this.
It is just to say that there is still £10,000 that is stacked with grants committee for additional sponsorship grants, and I think we just need to clarify, bring Will in as well, if that's okay, about it's not transferring the sponsorship policy over. That is still going to sit with grants committee, and I think we need to have our own process as to how you distribute the funds. So there's some ideas on whether or not we enter into some sort of service level agreement with these.
Thank you, Donna. Will.
So just adding on to that, the 5 events were identified as they were 5 that we've given to in the last 2 previous years. And so the thinking behind it from the grants committee was that as they've been supported on a yearly basis for the last 2 years, that they should then go to the community and place committee under a service level agreement to then be delivered and work closer with them so that we can still hold them to account over certain criteria, but they're not having to write applications over and over again for things that clearly give a lot of benefit to the community that we're going to say yes to dominantly. So
Thanks, Will. Councillor Garside, Councillor Ellison.
Again, I just want to say that the Carnival Committee, they just thought they were not allowed to, because they've been told they can't ask, into subsequent years. This year it suffered massively when they were giving awards at the end, because they couldn't afford a proper venue to give out the awards. We were all stuck in this drafty old YMCA, and there was no water, which really, after all that time on the road for all those people, I mean, surely is a health issue. It was done in a way that they couldn't do any more because they didn't have the funds for it. And I do think it's been running for 37 years. It brought a lot of people into the town. It gave a lot of families a lot of pleasure, and it's deserving to be on this list. That's all I'm saying. And just because they haven't been applying, it's because they were not given maybe the right information, or I don't know.
Will, do you want to respond?
just that might be a drop in communication on our part, because with the general grants policy you can't apply 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
But with the sponsorship policy you can, so maybe that
They didn't know that. They didn't.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Councillor Ellis and Councillor Strauss.
Okay, I don't think we can agree either of these recommendations. I think we're going to have to probably recommend an amendment to the recommendation, because as Donna says, we're not transferring a policy from one committee to another. We're transferring a ring-fence pot from one committee to another, which is exactly what Will described. It's like acknowledging there are annual events. We are never not going to want to give money to Somerset Armed Forces Day for as long as it's running. We're never not going to want to support Taunton Pride for as long as it's running, and they, come to us every year. So we need to be really clear that we are supporting these events. We can't. It's ridiculous that they have to put in. They're in a separate category because they're a key part of the annual calendar, etc. So it's not there. You can still. There's the possibility for new entries to sort of say we would like sponsorship for this event, blah blah blah. Maybe they'll become annual fixtures. So we can't agree that. We note the recommendation from the grants committee, but it needs to be amended so that it's the correct recommendation. And then I don't like the bit about limit sponsorship opportunities to others, because it absolutely doesn't, because there's a pot there for sponsorship opportunities that's still sat with the grants committee. So it's just taking a chunk of them out. There is still opportunities for you to be sponsored by Taunton Town Council. So I think that just needs to go, because I think the intention of grants committee was specifically Armed Forces Day, Pride in Priorswood, but the mayor has raised a critical issue, because the carnival is not one of our key annual events. So I think we need a recommendation around getting officers to go away and talk to the carnival about what kind of relationship we could have and what support going forward, which might be money, it might be something, I don't know, but let's have that conversation and let's recommend that happens tonight, that we have a formal chat with them and say, we recognise, we love carnival, carnival's key, we recognise you may need support. How do we, let's have an agreement going forward for how things will work, so you can plan with security for next year.
I'd like to go to Donna, please.
Just on top of that, I think what you need to bear in mind that the grants committee, that's what they have resolved to support those 5 events. They've specifically left £10,000 in their sponsorship thing, so we are not excluding the carnival committee to apply for funding. And what it could be, as in next year, not as in 25, 26, 27, that could then come over as an annual event as well. I think you just need to, that's what they had agreed to be passed over to you. Should be considered. There's nothing to say we can't add them on.
Thanks, Donna. Craig and then Will.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to clarify. So obviously the use of the sponsorship policy and adopting it was actually, so we know it wasn't going to be technically fit for purpose for our community in place, but it was actually to have a framework that we would be able to adapt and actually have a starting base that we were working from to then bring a policy, I guess, back to the community in place committee to say, here's the revised kind of policy or decision matrix that we want to work to in order to identifying which organisations would be good to support. So I just wanted to kind of make that really, really clear. And in regards to the second recommendation that Caroline highlighted, members to know that 5K events may limit sponsorship opportunities to others, which is right, but it goes on to say it is recommended to remove that support to those 5K events and instead assess applicants on an individual basis.
Yeah, I've got a problem with that then, because we set out, we said there are key annual events that we want, instead of giving, putting them through the come and apply, whatever, we want a different approach involving community in place where it's planned out and you work in partnership to ensure that we get the best possible outcomes. So it's just negating the whole point of what the grants committee was trying to do by saying remove the individual thingies. That's not what. You can always bat it back to grants. Well, maybe it's silly.
Yeah, I just wanted to build on that and say the reason we left the 10,000 in that sponsorship pot was to act as that contingency, so that there is still avenues for other community events to take place. Additionally, what we also agreed upon was that those 5 events wouldn't be able to apply for our grants on top for those events that are taking place. So they would be prohibited from applying, so that it allows that 10,000 to be for new community events to take place.
Councillor Strauss.
I'd just like to touch on the twinning committees. The Taunton Lisieux Civic Twinning Link works slightly differently to Friends of Lisieux. Financially, the thinking has always been that we treat both equally. I'd like to declare an interest because I'm the vice chair and treasurer of the Taunton Lisieux Civic Twinning Link, and Nick is in fact the chair. What I would like to make sure is that we've discussed £3,000, which is made payable to the incoming group each year. In other words, Lisieux doesn't need any money this year, and it may not need any money next year because we've still got money left over from COVID. But in due course, they will need money. So this is a policy we're talking about. And Koningsluther will have an incoming group this year. They will need help with their funding. But particularly next year when they go over, when the incoming group comes here, because the twinning groups have to provide the hospitality for all incoming guests, which includes the big formal dinner, which is a civic dinner that the mayor attends. So can we please try and make sure this stays within this committee? It would be awkward if they had to keep applying to the grants committee. I don't think they used to have under Somerset, did they? Under Somerset Western Taunton, they did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was changed. If we were to look back many years, there was an automatic payment, but this was reviewed and changed to an application process.
Right.
When you look at the number of people that are involved in the civic twinning links, I think it was deemed fair to look at reserves that they hold in their bank accounts and all kinds of things. So I think it was about being open and transparent and clear, and making sure that they hit the criteria rather than just an automatic assumption that funding was coming, that fundraising was still happening to support that activity from the actual group of people involved within each twinning group.
Oh, it makes perfect sense to have a subject too built into it. But the basic principle is, in the absence of money being in their account, that we would be prepared to grant up to so much as a matter of course. That's all I'm asking, rather than having it go through the grants committee, unless it was felt that was the right way. I don't know whether, Nick, you've got a view on this.
Well, I think we discussed this in our budget briefing, so that this is actually a separate topic, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Donna.
I was just about to say, I think that's just going off topic.
Yeah.
It's these events that you're considering, like, which has come over
Only
the
this.
grants committee. I think, and maybe as a way for moving forward, because what you need to do is make sure that the process is transparent still. We can transfer over the sponsorship policy to this committee because it's still going to be used and utilised via the grants committee. So you need to find another mechanism as to how we can, you know, make sure it is transparent and there's a process. So whether or not you want to say that you will review this item at the moment, and you can bring it back to a later agenda item, and perhaps we can go away with Will. Is it that we come back and say that should we propose a service level agreement for some of these organisations? I think that there's 4 on that list that is something you could enter into. The one that you couldn't at the moment would be Winterfest because they are actually a business. So how is that fair and how is it transparent that we are offering 7,000, however much it was, to one business when there could be others out there, or it could be something that you wanted to do internally, as in you want to put on an event as such. But definitely the other 4 is something that you can consider. So maybe you could defer it at the moment that you know that the fact that the budget has been transferred over to you, but the mechanism of how you distribute the funds is up for deferral for the moment, so some more work can go into.
Thank you, Donna. Did you get all that, Ollie?
Yeah, I'm working out.
Part of it.
That seems like a good idea.
From you later.
I think there needs to be a bit of getting our ducks in a row.
I was going to suggest that we bring it back when it's got a bit more flesh on the bones and a little bit more detail and a little bit more changing of the wording. So yes, I think we defer it. I completely agree. Do we have to take a vote on that?
I think for the sake of the minutes, it could be that the recommendation to you is the committee noted the transfer of the £25,000, and it was resolved that the item would be deferred, the distribution of funds, to a later meeting, and then put it onto your forward plan for the next committee meeting. Did that make it simpler for the minutes?
Yeah.
So just
Thank
point
you.
out that we have just agreed that the funds have been transferred in our budget.
You've agreed that you're going to take the funds,
Yeah.
but how you
agreed
distribute
that.
it
No?
It's fine, yeah.
would
Yes.
be.
Wait a minute, can we agree the principle
Yeah.
that there are key annual events,
Yes.
including AIM-BIN, because I don't want that to be lost, because that's what it was
Yes.
transferred for. And it's just the mechanism,
I
but we're
agree.
deferring that, how that works
Yes.
to the next day. It
Process.
can't be just that we've noted we've got 25 grand, well, let's see. It's for, you know, this purpose of supporting key, these key events. But we're deferring how that all works till later.
Yes, bring another report.
Yeah.
To committee.
So in principle, we're not saying we don't think we should be supporting these 5 annual events
No.
within us. We are agreeing with that in principle.
Yes. So we're agreeing.
So you need a proposer and a seconder, sorry for that.
A proposer, can I have a seconder? Councillor Ellis. All those in favour? Hang on,
Yeah.
I think we have
One last item.
one last item. So it's the agenda item 13, and it's the use of the earmarked reserve for the civic reserve. And we are being asked to agree on utilising the earmarked civic reserve to balance the civic budget line by the end of the financial year. So is this you again, Craig?
Yeah, this is me. Thank you, Chair, for one final time tonight. There's been a recent review, a full review of the budget lines for community in place, and as part of that review, we picked up that civic activities and events, and that has identified an overspend on that budget line for this year. They're primarily down to the fact that there were additional costs involved with Remembrance Day service with the enhanced traffic management and hostile vehicle mitigation measures. So members tonight are being asked to transfer funds from the emergency civic reserve to balance the civic activities and the events budget for this year end. So with regards to the emergency reserve, it was built in to support any plans for a freedom parade that may come about this year. It's not anticipated that this will occur before the end of this financial year. So due to the planning timeframes, and therefore we can consider utilising this emergency fund to offset that overspend. So in terms of the actual budget figures, we're currently £4,600 overspent on our civic activities and events budget line. So we are requesting for £4,600 to be transferred from the civic EMR to our current budget line. So thank you, Chair.
Any questions? I think it's absolutely fine. Oh, Councillor Firmin.
Yes, was there a plan to put on a freedom parade, or was that just sort of like a, yeah, we might do this, but probably not?
Yeah. So we have two organisations that have the freedom of the town, and it's within their gift to ask to exercise that freedom at any point. And we note that 40 Commando haven't exercised their freedom, and neither have the Rifles for some time. So it's highly expected that it will happen, but I think they've been deployed in the recent months. So I don't imagine that they will be in a position to exercise before the end of this financial year.
Okay.
So let's go to the vote. So we are being asked to agree on utilising that civic reserve to balance the civic budget line by the end of the financial year. Can I have a proposer? Councillor Firmin and a seconder. Councillor Ellis. All those in favour? Thank you. And I believe that brings us to the close of our committee meeting this evening.
Well done, Sharon.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ollie.